As I said, it does take courageous prosecutors, but it takes a courageous United States attorney to bring this case, because we are going to take heat for it. But we don't shy away in this administration. We don't say no. What we do is we bring the results across the finish line. We bring them to the public. Good morning. Today we are here in New York to announce a historic arrest across a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise that envelops both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra. The men and women up here standing with me represent a small portion of the leadership team that brought profound justice in an era that needed it more than any. I'll just highlight some of the details in the case and the FBI work, and then you'll hear from the others. But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today, former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country. You hear a lot about our work of defending the homeland and crushing violent crime. Well, this work is also representative of a colossal portion of the FBI's mandate to keep America safe and to keep our entertainment industry fair and secure. The men and women that are standing up here today worked tireless hours, days, months, and years. And the fraud is mind-boggling. It's not hundreds of dollars. It's not thousands of dollars. It's not tens of thousands of dollars. It's not even millions of dollars. We're talking about tens of millions of dollars in fraud and theft and robbery across a multi-year investigation. And we could not have done it without our interagency partners that are before us today. The NYPD, HSI, and teams of law enforcement officials from around the country made this day possible. It takes a team to bring this kind of justice, sweeping justice, into the halls of the United States courtrooms, where our brave United States attorney has led this prosecution. It takes courageous prosecutors to stand before you and say, we will not allow this kind of illicit activity to happen, not only at the national sporting level, but also where it hides in La Cosa Nostra. And when these two collided together, they perpetrated a fraud that is historic in terms of not just money, but the scheme and the deceit that they utilize to steal and swindle people for money, to include crypto fraud. This is an operation that showcases to you that under President Trump's administration, there is no room for any type of criminal behavior, be it on the world's largest stage or in the back rooms of tiny parlors where guard games are being played. We are proud to stand here today with the men and women of the FBI and this legal team. And to the United States Attorney, I just want to thank you personally for taking the time to display the work that the media is about to hear about today in detail.
This morning in New York, the cameras captured a moment that felt larger than a press conference. Today, we are here to announce a historic arrest. FBI Director Kash Patel stood before the nation and described what he called a wide-sweeping criminal enterprise. One that, in his words, enveloped both the NBA and La Cosa Nostra. Former and current players, coaches, coordinated takedowns across 11 states. More than 30 individuals in custody. Charges ranging from wire fraud to money laundering, illegal gambling, extortion, and robbery. And then the line that cut through the noise. The fraud is mind-boggling. Not hundreds, not thousands, not even millions, tens of millions of dollars. And suddenly, this was no longer about sports headlines. It was about the integrity of American institutions, both public and private, and the invisible networks of power that operate behind bright lights and roaring crowds. When Patel described a multi-year investigation that penetrated organized crime families, Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, Lucchese, and connected those structures to alleged manipulation within professional sports, he wasn't just announcing arrests. He was making a statement about the reach of federal authority, about the willingness of this administration to confront what it portrays as entrenched corruption, no matter how prominent the stage. The NBA is more than a league. It is a global brand, a cultural force. a symbol of American excellence projected worldwide, to suggest that its games, the outcomes fans trust, the moments that shape careers, may have been exploited through coordinated gambling schemes tied to organized crime strikes at something deeper than financial loss. It challenges public confidence, and confidence is fragile. Patel framed the operation as a collision when illicit gambling networks met historic crime families, when deception intersected with celebrity, when backroom dealings touched the hardwood floors of packed arenas. He spoke of crypto-based schemes, of multi-year manipulation, of a system of deceit designed not just to siphon money, but to exploit trust. Because that is what makes fraud so corrosive. It erodes belief. The director emphasized interagency cooperation, the NYPD, Homeland Security investigations, prosecutors, teams working for years. He praised courageous attorneys willing to take heat. He invoked accountability, due process, the promise that every defendant would have their day in court. And in doing so, he touched on a foundational American principle: power must answer to law. There was also a broader message embedded in his remarks. Patel directly tied the operation to President Trump's administration, stating that there would be no room for any type of criminal behavior. The framing was deliberate. Enforcement not as isolated action, but as policy, as philosophy, as proof of strength. In today's political climate, that framing matters. When law enforcement actions intersect with high-profile industries and organized crime references, they become more than prosecutions. They become signals. Signals about priorities, about deterrence, about what lines cannot be crossed. They also invite scrutiny. Because whenever federal power moves decisively, questions follow. Was the evidence solid? Were the investigations impartial? Will due process be honored in full? Patel anticipated that scrutiny. They will have their day in court, he said. We will not deny anyone of due process. That is the tension at the heart of this moment. Swift justice and constitutional safeguards. The brilliance of the American system, as he described it, lies in that balance. Arrests do not equal convictions. Allegations do not equal guilt. The courtroom, not the press conference, is where proof must stand. Yet the scale described today, tens of millions of dollars, multi-state operations, alleged ties to long-standing organized crime families, reveals something unsettling about the modern landscape. Technology has accelerated gambling markets. Crypto has complicated financial tracking. Digital platforms have globalized risk. And where money flows rapidly and anonymously, sophisticated actors will attempt to exploit it. This investigation suggests that even institutions as visible as the NBA are not immune to hidden vulnerabilities. It also raises a moral question. What happens when spectacle and secrecy collide? Professional sports rely on the perception of fairness. Fans invest not just dollars, but emotion. When outcomes are questioned, when whispers of manipulation surface, the damage extends beyond balance sheets. It strikes at the very idea of merit. And that is why this case matters beyond its headline value. If the allegations hold, this was not simply about gambling. It was about leveraging influence, about coordinating deception, about using reputation as cover. And if federal investigators are correct, it required years of patience to unravel. There is another layer to this story, the cultural one. Organized crime has long occupied a mythic place in American history. Romanticized in films, studied in textbooks, prosecuted in courtrooms. But in reality, these networks thrive on silence, complexity, and calculated risk. When law enforcement announces penetration into those structures, it is asserting that no mythology grants immunity. Yet, even as officials celebrate sweeping arrests, the system must prove itself where it matters most: in court. Evidence must withstand cross-examination. Charges must align with facts. Justice must be transparent. Because accountability cuts both ways. This moment, this announcement in New York, represents a convergence of sport, finance, organized crime allegations, and federal power. It is cinematic, it is dramatic, but it is also procedural. It will unfold slowly through filings, motions, testimony, and verdicts. And in that unfolding, the public will learn whether the words mind boggling fraud reflect proven conspiracy or prosecutorial overreach. For now, what remains undeniable is this: tens of millions of dollars allegedly moved through hidden channels, coordinated arrests across 11 states, a declaration that no arena, however glamorous, is beyond scrutiny. In a nation built on the rule of law, the ultimate test is not the press conference. It is the courtroom. If justice is served faithfully, then today will mark not just an enforcement milestone, but a reaffirmation that transparency still matters. That institutions can be challenged, that power, whether in back rooms or bright stadiums, must answer to the Constitution. And if you believe in holding institutions accountable, whether they are leagues, agencies, or administrations, stay informed, stay engaged, support independent analysis that follows the facts wherever they lead. Subscribe to Liberty Report USA. Because the truth deserves more than headlines, it deserves examination.